don't want you to know what it feels like to keep all of this pain so concealed. Like I want out of this plane, I told my psych, you don't need to, you don't need to. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been sad, yeah. I'm a zero summation, lost in translation. Here's my resignation, from this life I'm not staying. My whole lifestyle passing fad. You'll remember the times we had, the times we had, yeah. All these pleasures my brain can't have. I want out, so please don't be sad. Give it up, cause I'm getting out. Don't be sad, you could let it out. All the shit I'm forgetting now. My whole life I've been checking out. All I said, you could send it out. Light it up, now I'm headed out. This is the end of my part now. We will be never apart, no. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been sad, yeah. Don't leave, I need you with me. Don't die, I need you alive. Don't go, don't leave me alone. You said, yeah. My entire life feels like one big mistake, and all these pills inhibit reality. I can't arrive at any reason to wait. Take it one at a time, only take it one night at a time. And I don't care, cause I don't give a take. From this world so superficial and fake, in all your joys I simply cannot relate. Take it one at a time, only take it one night at a time. I say goodbye, it's getting late now. Please don't cry, I know I made it out. Say goodbye before I fade out, before I fade out, before I fade out. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been sad, yeah. I'm a zero summation, lost in translation. Here's my resignation, from this life I'm not staying. My whole lifestyle passing fad. You'll remember the times we had, times we had, yeah. Let it out, all the shit I'm forgetting now. My whole life I've been checking out. All I said, you can send it out. Light it up, now I'm headed out. I don't want you to know what it feels like to keep all of this pain so concealed. Like I want out of this plane, I told my psych, you don't need to, you don't need to. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been sad, yeah. I'm a zero summation, lost in translation. Here's my resignation, from this life I'm not staying. My whole lifestyle passing fad. You'll remember the times we had, the times we had, yeah. All these pleasures my brain can't have. I want out, so please don't be sad. Give it up, cause I'm getting out. Don't be sad, you could let it out. All the shit I'm forgetting now. My whole life I've been checking out. All I said, you could send it out. Light it up, now I'm headed out. This is the end of my part now. We will be never apart, no. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been sad, yeah. Don't leave, I need you with me. Don't die, I need you alive. Don't go, don't leave me alone. You said, yeah. My entire life feels like one big mistake, and all these pills inhibit reality. goodbye, it's getting late now. Please don't cry, I know I made it out. Say goodbye before I fade out. Before I fade out, before I fade out. I'm losing patience, living in damnation. I'm dark vibrations, singing incantations. It must sound like I'm mad, I'm never found to be glad. I'm working out of the math, the answer's always been said, yeah. I'm a zero summation, lost in translation. Here's my resignation, from this life I'm not staying. My whole life's a passing fad. You'll remember the times we had. Times we had, yeah. Let it out, all the shit I'm forgetting now. My life I've been checking out. All I said you can send it out. Light it up, now I'm headed out.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the zoo. I'm the Rusty Panda, and I'm here for you. Today, we've got ThatEflatGuy. Wah, 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 wah.
Just smiling and waving.
Smile and wave. Just smile and wave. Alma, welcome on in. E-Flat's guy's mom, welcome on in.
Hello, Mama.
So we've got a fun-filled list for everyone today. If you've never been here before, this is WIKI Wednesday, a show where we ask a streamer 15 things they like, 5 things they don't like, and go down the Wikipedia rabbit hole talking about those topics and learning more about the streamer. So we are in an ad, but we're going to keep going. So the first thing that you put on your list, but you said there were no particular order, but I found this one really fascinating, is list of cryptids. So I'm curious now why you put this on your list.
I just enjoy talking about things that make you suspend disbelief. It's kind of like anything that you can't disprove, right? But it hasn't been able to be proved, like that it exists, and you can't also disprove that it doesn't exist. So I kind of enjoy just hearing stories about, whatever could be in this big, magnificent planet, and beyond. So I sometimes will listen to podcasts, dealing with those kind of tales and stuff.
Interesting. And hi, Gibson Lands. Welcome on in.
Hey, Bert.
Okay, so I'm looking here, and the first thing I see is the Jersey Devil, which makes me... Oh, and I guess hi, Galvos. At least my husband. I guess hi, Galvos, whatever.
Hey, Galvos.
I described you, by the way. I was like, you did Creed, right? You were the one who did Creed.
Yeah.
I was like, do you remember? He's the guy who did Creed. And he's like, oh, yeah. If anyone knows what we're talking about, we actually met at TwitchCon in Vegas, and we all went out to a karaoke
Super
bar.
Fun.
So much fun. And we all sung songs and such, but Ryan over here, he went ahead and sang Creed. And was it with Arms Wide Open?
It was Higher.
Oh, Can You Take Me Higher?
Look at that.
Yeah.
There you go.
But I digress. So, list of cryptids. So, yeah, I saw the Jersey Devil, which is personal home to me because I'm from Jersey. So that one was spread throughout my whole childhood. I love the Chupacabra one. Chupacabra is probably one of my favorite because it's fun to say. And also they've tried really hard to prove that this thing exists. Like, people have gone nuts trying to make sure that the Chupacabra exists. What's your favorite? What's your favorite one?
Probably, honestly, just like aliens and UFOs in general. It's just, I think it's one of the more, of course, there's been a lot of stuff popping up, like in the news about, stuff that's in our airspace that like the governments aren't really sure what it is yet. And so that just like adds to the whole, like, mystery element of it because it's like, well, you can't prove that it's aliens, but you
I'm
also
not
can't
saying
quite
it's
disprove it
aliens.
either.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Not
know, so it's
saying
really
it's
interesting.
aliens.
It's it's really fun. Um, and any of these things, like, it's just interesting to think about, like, what if they did exist? Like, how would that change? You know, would it change anything about my life, or would it change anything about society to, like, if these things definitively, like, existed,
Right.
so that's just always something I've been interested in and had fun kind of as just using imagination a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And do you think it would affect your life somehow? I mean, we've come out and say that aliens are real all of a sudden, and I'm just curious, what does that impact your life?
um it I think, I don't know, yeah, I think in a way it could, just because of, like, uh a bunch of narratives I think we have about ourselves, as, like, we're, like, the most intelligent creatures we know that exist.
Hmm.
And then, like, there's some competition here, potentially, if these things exist and they're flying around in whatever they're flying around in that we don't understand. So from that perspective, it's kind of humbles you a little bit, I think. And maybe it would have that effect on you know other people, particularly maybe more powerful people than me. you know
Right. Yeah, and what's interesting to me is when they say, is there life out there? Is it smarter than us? I'm like, yeah. Like, it's out there. We're in here. So clearly it's smarter than us if it's able to get to here. Um and in the end we're all stardust, so it's not like we know what's going on out there.
And actually, I will say one of my favorite things to think about is, what if what if this phenomena has actually always been here? And what if it's
Ooh.
something that's, lived alongside of us somehow, like particularly in the depths of the ocean?
Ooh, yeah, because we
Because
don't know
there's a
what's
lot
down
of the
there.
ocean that remains unexplored. And what if some beings figured out a way to, like, live at those unchartable waters? And it's just, it seems completely preposterous, but at the same time you also can't disprove it, so it's just a fun thing to think about.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing to think about. I think that all of the uh there's like crazy movies and stuff that explain this. Um but what do you think about you said they live alongside of us. So do you think that's mainly like that they're in the earth, or do you think that alongside of us, like been here before we were here?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's again, it's all, of course, complete speculation,
Oh,
right?
speculate. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
want to
yeah,
know your
it's fun.
opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of speculate that it's just in places that we haven't explored. The timeline thing is another interesting part of it. But it would be reasonable to say, if, say, for example, there have been uh I'm struggling to know how well documented these are, but I have heard stories of craft that can travel through the water and the air at about the same speed. Like, it's not impacted by traveling through the water, versus the air. So, like, if whatever these beings were, if they were living underwater and able to have craft that, what they call, like, transmedium, because they can go in and out pretty interchangeably,
Hmm.
then it reasons to say they may have been around longer because they've advanced to do something that humanity hasn't figured out how to do.
Right.
And then, of course, it's like, what if humanity did figure out? What if there are people that have figured this out, and there's just a hole? cover up? You
Propaganda.
know,
Yeah.
what if there's a whole cover up? What if humanity has figured this out? Some people have figured this out, but it's a secret for, you know, power and control or whatever.
Right. Oh, I love that. I love
So
that.
it can yeah, there's endless, it's endless speculation that you could go into. And I try to be, as much as I enjoy it, I really try to emphasize that it is speculation and it's not something I necessarily believe,
Right.
but it's just something I think about.
Right. And it's
um
fun to think
yeah.
about too. Um, so I'm curious here. Cryptid redirects here for the 2023 film See Cryptids. Have you heard of this?
Nope. I maybe I should go see it.
Yeah. Cryptids takes place in a
Interesting.
radio station during a show called The Truth Serum. On tonight's episode, Harlan decides to tackle the topic of cryptozoology, but when the phone lines light up and the calls come in, each caller's story becomes increasingly bizarre, and Harlan
Oh
starts to question
yes.
if real dangers are lurking outside the station.
Oh, this sounds good. I
What
want to
in the
see
world?
it.
Oh my god. This is going to be like one of those things you see on Mystery Science Theater. Oh god. That's
Yeah.
crazy. All right, cool. Well, cryptids is apparently now more even well known by the amazing movie Cryptids in
Yeah.
August 2023.
And I really appreciate that this word exists. You
Yeah.
know, it's a really useful word because it's like, again, like, you know, mythological creatures is kind of like the closest I would probably come to describing them.
Mhm.
But, you know, the thing with these myths is, you know, you talk to some people and, like, again, they have 100% conviction that, like you said, like, people have been trying to prove the chupacabra exists. People, of course, have been chasing after, you know, UFOs and trying to prove that aliens are here, you know. So they can kind of get offended, I think, by the mythological term because it kind of implies more that
Right.
they don't exist, you know. But
Right.
cryptids is kind of this gray area of like, do they or don't they? So I really like the word.
Yeah, me too. Have you ever seen Archer?
That, oh gosh, I think one of my friends like really loved that show. Is that the animated
Spy
show?
show?
And it's like, I think the protagonist is kind of like a, he's supposed to be like a secret agent or
That's
something.
right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, okay. I think I've only seen like one or two episodes, so
He's
I
obsessed with the
very surface level.
he's obsessed with the chupacabra.
Oh, okay.
And so that's why I had brought it up. And he's like,
Nice.
Lana, it's the chupacabra. So that's why I was asking.
That's awesome.
All right, so we're talking about cryptids, and now we're gonna kind of. I think it's fitting to go towards, since we're even in the film category, Inception.
Mm, yes.
Um, I
Fantastic.
love that you put this movie on here, because it was one of those movies that really changed my way of thinking. So tell me more about Inception.
Oh gosh. Yeah, changing your way of thinking, right? I just love this film. I just think from beginning to end, um it it just fulfills a lot of the things I want out of a film, you know. There's great action sequences, a really thoughtful and amazingly produced soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
I'd argue it's Hans Zimmer's best, that he's done with this soundtrack. The way that, um, and I guess maybe I feel like friends in chat. Have you all seen this movie? Um, it's a very hard movie to describe.
Yeah.
But the best way I can describe it is, these the protagonist, Leonardo DiCaprio's character. I'm actually, it's amazing. I've seen this movie so many times, but I always forget the character's name. Um,
As Dom Cobb.
Dom Cobb. Yes, 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 yes. So Dom Cobb is, he's in some kind of legal trouble, which isn't clear. They don't spell it out super clearly throughout the movie, but so because he's been basically kind of a con man and a thief. He's kind of his job is often to go on these dangerous missions and um, basically convince people to give him information that intel, that can help somebody else. And he promises that he's not going to do it anymore. But he's the way that he does his information grabbing is by going into people's dreams, into their subconscious. And so there's this whole equipment that or medication or something that enables them all to fall asleep, and they end up going into somebody's dream. Um, and yeah, it's pretty wild because there's a whole lot of different rules as far as that the movie creates
Mm-hmm.
about what you can and can't do within a dream. And um, yeah, it's wild. So the cool thing about the soundtrack is, and the movie concept is, when you're in the dream, time um time feels normal to you in the dream, but it's like slowed down compared to how you experience real life.
Mm-hmm.
So like I can't even remember the scale, but it's pretty significant. Like you can spend days in a dream within like one night's sleep or something, so so the soundtrack that you hear, the first thing you hear when the credit opens is like, it's like this really booming, like bassy, like sound, almost like a tuba. But what it is it's a trumpet, like slowed down to like super slow speed and stretched out. That's from a song that they use throughout the film to like help people wake up when they're in the dream, because they need something to wake them up. It's a hard concept again to
Yeah,
explain,
yeah.
but the soundtrack is just so good. The acting is great in it, and I think the cinematography, the action, and the sequencing that they do throughout is incredible. I'm sure you remember, like, my favorite scene is when they're like within several layers of the dreams,
Mm-hmm.
and in one dream, the van is falling off of the bridge
Right.
and it's like tumbling, and then in the next level people are fighting and the hotel is tumbling because the car is tumbling in the next level up. It's such a wild sequence. I love it.
And it's really well done too.
Yeah, yeah. Gosh, what is her name? The French actress that plays Maul, his wife,
Uh,
is
Marion Cotillard.
Cotillard, I think.
Cotillard.
But yeah, she is terrifying in this movie, because she's not an actual person. She's like an element of Cobb's subconscious,
Mm-hmm.
and so like her role is she's basically like the one that's trying to sabotage everything, and she's terrifying.
Yeah.
And it's like she plays that part so well. It's wild. um I feel like I would do a double take if I like came across her in real life. I'd be like,
Oh God.
even though she's probably a lovely, like, nice person, but
Yeah.
that's where I know her from.
I was.
What about yourself? So you said this changed the way that you think.
Yeah, the concept of going into a dream, going into a dream, going into a dream, and then the time difference that you would go into. Like, I have a lot of dreams. I don't know if you do. Like, I wake up and I was like, wow, that was a really weird dream. Or I'll wake up and I can't wake up and I can't wake up because I'm stuck in a dream. I actually can't physically wake up. And so the concept of going into somebody's dream and to evaluate it. I think there was a movie that tried to determine if you could develop what is somebody's dream is. And by doing so, the science is that you every day they sit in there and they show you pictures with your lenses wide open, right? And they show you different pictures and how you react to those pictures, and all of that is going on subconsciously. Then what they do is they have you fall asleep, and some of the things that they're trying to capture is what is going on in this dream because they've already mapped your mind, so to speak.
Oh, interesting.
And
Yeah.
so they were able to see, and I can't remember if this is true or a movie or a simulation or what, but they found out that the kid was having dreams about baseball, and how ultimately it was his baseball coach that was, this is awful, the baseball coach was the one that was molesting him, and they were able to
Um,
determine that by mapping his mind, because he was a mute, something like that.
wow.
And so
Wow.
this concept of dream frequencies and understanding dreams, and the thing I just explained to you, I think it's all fascinating, because honestly, if you're able to truly map a mind, or you're truly to like hypnotize someone to really go into their subconscious, that's crazy science. I mean, I try to look at it in the real way compared to the inception way, and say how would this work if you were to literally try to go into somebody's brain, figuratively, not literally, go into somebody's brain and try to determine what their dreams are and how to interpret that. So, that's my spiel.
Yeah, no, I don't I have a very short memory when it comes to dreams. I know, of course, also like science says that we have them like just about every night while we're sleeping, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's pretty rare that I wake up and have any kind of recollection of dreams. Not to say that it's never happened, but it's extremely rare. But yeah, I just I just really enjoy the whole experience of the movie and how you can kind of keep watching it, because the, I guess without spoiling it too much if somebody hasn't seen it. Although honestly, I feel like I could tell you the whole plot
And
and it
it's
would still be an enjoyable experience as a movie because
yeah,
it's just that fun to like just watch and listen to. The whole experience again with the cinematography and the soundtrack is incredible. Um but but the whole central question of the movie is Dom Cobb, is what he's experiencing. What is his reality? Because he's gone in and out of dreams so many times that kind of it's he's had trouble de- determining the difference between what's real and what's a dream.
mhm,
Um, and so there have been a lot of theories about like when is he in a dream and when is he in reality. There's
right,
there's a whole and that's and then of course there's also some criticisms about some inconsistencies that you could kind of pick out if you're really really watching it on that level, but the movie wasn't quite intended to be picked apart in that way.
right,
I think it's just because nobody is capable of picking it apart that way the first time they watch it, or
mhm,
even the second time. I feel like it'd be hard. um
yeah.
you gotta watch it a whole bunch. They were like some things that I saw people picked up and I was like, oh, I would never have noticed that unless somebody pointed it out.
Right,
Can't point to anything specific to me because it wasn't all that important to me, but
right.
um
Give some
yeah.
lens. I don't think spoilers don't ruin most good films. You're missing a word there.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you could spoil a
I
movie and be like, "Oh, this was the
yeah.
plot. This was the entrance. Okay, I've pretty much watched the movie."
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that perspective,
Mm-hmm.
Bert. I kind of agree with Panda though. Like, but I will warn you too. Like, this is kind of an inside joke. Um, and I actually have heard this from my mom. I've like warned people like, don't ever go see a movie if someone tells you it was cute, because that means it was boring. Cute is like, oh, how's the movie? Oh, it was cute. That
Yeah,
means it was a
don't
boring
see
movie.
it.
Don't go see it.
Yeah. Hi, Chris. Welcome on in. So a few things. One, did you ever see the movie The Cell?
The Cell.
It's with Joe.
It's not sounding familiar
All
to
right,
me.
I have
It's very
Wikipedia in front of
interesting
me.
because song titles I can get a little bit mixed up, but movie titles I tend to hold on to pretty well, for whatever reason.
Jennifer
Um,
Lopez.
no, I don't think I've ever seen this.
So basically, allows her to enter a comatose mind and attempts to coax them into consciousness.
Mm.
So, a young boy left comatose by a viral infection that causes an unusual form of schizophrenia. Um, but the progress has been hampered by a boogeyman like alter ego whom Dean avoids. And so basically, she's going through all that. But it's very similar as far as going into the subconscious. The second thing I've wanted to see if you knew was Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I did get to see that movie. Yeah, that is a very impressive film.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a real mind bender too in terms of what is reality with um there's a little bit of like a question of determinism in that movie too, I feel like how much of your life's journey is like up to chance and how much is like fate or predestined.
Mm-hmm.
um Pretty interesting. Yeah, yeah, this movie is wild. You gotta you gotta come into it with like an open mind.
Yeah, I went into it having no I didn't know what it was about. I didn't understand it, and I feel like that's the way you have to go into it. Because if you go
Yes.
into it with like, "Oh, so and so told me this was going to happen." It's like you don't even know. Like you don't even know.
Yeah, yeah. It's a very good title, I have to say.
Mhm.
Um, it's an incredible title for a film. I just think, yeah, I just think it sums up the whole movie really, uh, super well. Inception's a pretty good title for a movie, but it it is at the core of the film, so it's a
Right.
good title. But
Yeah, I
but
think it's a good title for it. The reason I came back to it was because I noticed something. We were talking about the cast, and it said both Brad Pitt and Will Smith were offered the role
oh, interesting.
as Leonardo DiCaprio, and then for
Wow,
Joseph
wow.
Gordon-Levitt's character, James Franco was in talks with Christopher Nolan to play Arthur, but was ultimately unavailable due to scheduling conflicts.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, interesting. That would have been a very different movie with Will Smith at the
Yep.
center of it, I feel like, in particular.
Yep.
And it was Brad Pitt. Um, yeah, and I mean, obviously, any actor has their own performance to add to a film, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't see. It's kind of like on the chart. There's like Leonardo and Brad Pitt and then like Will Smith, just in terms of like the films I'm used to seeing them in.
Mm-hmm.
Like Will Smith is very, I mean, Will Smith has done dramatic acting like really well. Like
What was that movie?
the 7 Pounds movie, I thought was pretty well done. It's a very, it is not a fun watch. I will warn people of that. 7 Pounds is kind of about like organ donation. It's almost like if The Giving Tree was a real life film.
Right.
um, yeah. But and also The Pursuit of Happiness. I
Yeah, I
thought
was
he
just
did
gonna
well in
do
that
that one.
one.
Yep. Uh,
Um,
and
but
then I Robot, but then there's the other one that he does. That's when
I Am
he's
Legend.
thank you. That's the other one.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I mean, he's really done great acting, but I just yeah, that Dom Cobb character, it's hard for me to really picture him playing that character. And it would be interesting to see what he would have done with that character. I feel like it would have felt very different.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, Brad Pitt as well. Yeah, that would be a different thing too. I think I think what I think I don't know, like with Leonardo DiCaprio, I think it's his demeanor is I don't know. it's kind of soft spoken,
I was just gonna say
like
it's softer than if you were gonna go
yeah.
ahead and put in Brad Pitt, who's more edgy.
Right. So in a way, it helps, like, even though he's at the center of the movie, he's not at the center of attention all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Like, it allows you to pay more attention, I think, to the stuff that's going on.
Yeah, and
Um,
the other characters as well. You know, sometimes you
yeah.
can have a show-stopping number by the head lead role, and then you're like, oh yeah, I forgot the other guys existed. Oh, there was a story. You mean I wasn't just watching one guy be one guy?
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah, that's yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, awesome. Yeah, this was a good topic, and just a really overall good movie. Um,
Go see it. If you haven't seen it, just find a way to watch it. Um, it's it's worth your time.
so I was gonna go into Myers Briggs.
Aha.
I had to do this for college. I was a college student personnel administration major in my master's degree, and we had to do Myers Briggs up the ass for everything.
Oh my gosh. I'm
um,
sorry about that.
yeah, yeah, but I mean, it's fun. It's interesting. What are you, by the way?
So this is what I like and dislike about it. So I don't really like the labels.
Okay.
And here's why, because I think the intention behind the labels is to show you, like, your preferences, but not necessarily the whole picture of, like, who you are.
Right.
Because preferences and habits can change over time, and I feel like people are, um, very much capable of changing, and I would definitely say that I'm changing myself. So I had been, like, an evaluation I had before, I was like an INFJ,
Mm-hmm.
but I definitely do lean more towards that kind of um intuitive kind of side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Um but I really just like that we have kind of language to describe, like, these different processes, like um uh like extroverted feeling versus, like, introverted feeling, um you know which is, like, basically, like, extroverted feeling is kind of like you're responding to the world around you, um and your own feelings can often be influenced by what you're experiencing around you, whereas introverted feeling is more like it is like your own inner experience and conflict, which, again, I think every human experiences both of those things, but it's a matter of, like, what do you lean towards and what do you experience more often. I think those kinds of things are healthy questions to ask. But so I don't like to say, "Oh, I'm an INFJ," because I feel like, like, I have some preferences and that kind of suits me the best, but that doesn't mean, like, I don't experience the other things that are, like, described in the other types, you know?
It's just really funny because I'm also an INFJ. Um, but I switched because over the course of the 2 years you had to take the
Mhm.
test again, and I switched from being an ENFJ to an INFJ, and I feel like as I
Mm.
get more into my 30s, I'm like I'm definitely an introvert. like
Mhm.
like I don't want to go out, like, but I need the stimulus of like talking to people. Like that's why Twitch is so good because I can
Yeah.
talk to people, but then I can hang up. Like
So, did you have to get into, like, the cognitive, functions, talk?
I believe so. It was about
Because
10 years ago,
that
but
yeah, that was, like, a really interesting thing for me because it again, like, so the letters INFJ,
hmm
um, it's describing 4 different functions, if you will, that you prefer. So an INFJ would prefer most to use introverted intuition. which is probably one of the hardest things to describe, but it's kind of a just an anticipatory way of thinking that's like you're more like building models and patterns in your own mind and trying to make connections to things.
Mhm.
Um, and then following that, your secondary function is actually extroverted feeling.
Mhm.
So, like, kind of connecting with the experience of other people's emotions. And then the third function would be introverted thinking, which basically means you do a lot of your thinking and planning inside your own mind instead of kind of like, mapping it out or talking it out like in a room with other people and stuff like that.
Right.
That process is more just internalized. And then the inferior function is extroverted sensing,
Mhm.
which is again kind of taking in things and experiences from around you to kind of help you map things out. But it's something that you don't use as much. And sometimes what I like about it is like if you're thinking about do these processes, then you're more likely to do them.
Right.
you know, because what I realized was like I'm kind of in touch a lot with like some of the extroverted kind of tendencies. Um, and I think a bit of that is like kind of growing up doing things like going to big sporting events where like people are loud and yelling and cheering, doing all that stuff, or like um my family would have gatherings, parties and stuff that would get a little just safe but kind of loud and boisterous, and like people lots of people chatting and stuff. So like even though I wasn't super like loud oftentimes in those environments, I did start to get that way. Like I got more comfortable with it
Right.
and become more boisterous with it. And that's kind of I think a good example again of like we have these preferences, but it's important to not be like, oh, I'm this and I'm not this. You know what I mean?
Right. And
Like yeah.
DL Miller over here says, as a musician, it's like when people ask what kind of music do you like and are expected to just name one, as if you're only allowed to be and like and be one thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Welcome in, by the way. And I actually, it's interesting that you say that because I feel, well, I guess also I don't have as many new encounters where I'm at now just because I'm kind of traveling in a lot of the same circles a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
trying to find ways to get out of that, or not get out of where I'm at, but just trying to find ways to reach out a little bit more, meet more new people. But but yeah, I'm finding that question is coming across like less and less for me. I feel like now, especially with the way that we consume music through playlists and stuff, I think a lot of people are discovering that, oh, you know what? I actually do. Sometimes I want EDM.
Right.
And sometimes I want, classical music. Sometimes I want to rock out or I want to listen to hip hop. Like a lot of people now, I think, are just pretty eclectic and diverse in what they like to listen to. So I feel like I don't get that question as much. Um,
The most
but
common answer for all the people that I've ever talked to, and that's because of where I've been niche, New Jersey, and then now in Kansas City, everything but country is the answer
wow,
every
yeah.
single time. I'm like, what about gospel? You think of all the things that you probably don't listen to, not that you dislike, just that you don't
Sure.
listen to. And no, you
Hmm.
have to hang on country. It's like
Yeah.
that's just so funny, but so interesting.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think there is a lot of and it's understandable. It's just like particularly with a bit of the country music, like it's intended for a very specific audience. So like, it relates very well to a certain audience, and like if you're not a part of that, you feel kind of left out, and like you're just like I don't
Right.
what do I care about this stuff? Because I don't experience this stuff, tractors and and
Right.
whatever, so I kind of get it, but I don't feel that way. Um it is funny though, just I haven't been exposed to as much country music, which is funny considering I've lived my whole life in North Carolina,
Yeah.
um but it was just like I grew up, my mom likes a lot of, and still does, and at the time she liked a lot of the singer songwriters, um and kind of pop, pop music as well. My dad liked classic rock and like a lot of that stuff, and then my late grandfather was one of my other musical influences, and he was really into classical and jazz. So like those were kind of like my three
Yeah.
influences of music. So I had a pretty wide listening base at that age, especially for a kid like in the 90s,
Mhm.
before, internet changed the way we consume music. But I didn't, country wasn't among those.
Mhm.
So I had very little understanding what country was, and by the time I did, I was kind of when I really got exposed to country music was more in high school, like in social settings and stuff, and I was like,
What?
yeah, I don't particularly like prefer this, there's a lot of crossover with rock, but um relatively speaking, I was at a point in my life where I was listening to stuff that sounded novel and different,
Right.
and country is supposed to be very familiar and like,
That's a
comforting, if you will, which was not
great
at all
way
what
to
I was looking
describe
for.
that. That's an awesome way to describe that.
Yeah.
Now, it's funny because my mom was all about like Bee Gees, Fleetwood Mac, all that stuff. My dad was about Rush, Kansas Journey, Genesis. And then my brother was all about the indie scene.
Nice.
So anything that was like Bright Eyes and Death Cab for Cutie and Postal Service and all of that, um, that's where I got my three. And country
Cool.
was not among not among that. I
Yeah.
grew up being a mama's boy, and mother was the oldie, so I grew up with awareness of music of my own generation. Honestly, even now there are some songs of my generation and younger that I like, but I have the strongest ties to oldies and classic rock. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I like how we just did Myers Briggs with music. That was pretty cool. I liked that a lot.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
Fitting.
Yeah, right. Let's talk about Young the Giant. So,
Yeah.
fun fact: when you were like, "I wonder why you picked this," I was like, "Cause I like it," and then it clicked to me that it was on your list, but not until after you had already gotten off stream. Because you're like, "I wonder why you picked this." I'm like, "Cause I like it." Like I don't. All right, tell me about Young the Giant.
Yeah, I latched on to them at the beginning of their career and have kind of just kept up with them ever since. Um, I have not really like learned much about like the band's biography, if you will. But I do know that like um they a lot of them have like experience either their parents or themselves like as being immigrants, and so there's just like this huge kind of, particularly in their most recent album American Bollywood, it's kind of all about, even like musically kind of bringing in some of these influences from like other traditions of music, kind of into their very signature Young the Giant sound. Samir Gadia is like one of my favorite frontmen of like any band like ever. Like
Yeah.
I just think he's very capable of like singing softly as he is like belting and singing loud, and it's really impressive. I've gotten to see them live twice
Oh
in
wow.
concert, and it's super impressive to hear him just transition like just so effortlessly from like
Yeah.
to doing both of those things. Um, he's got a really nice vocal quality, but to me, it's his, as like somebody who sings. Like I appreciate how well he can control both like his soft singing and like his belting like loud singing, and the band as a whole is very they're willing to um they're willing to set the scene and paint a picture, which is definitely again like a very indie alternative thing to do.
Mhm.
um it's definitely not, I mean, they do have some songs that are driving and uh focused, but some of their other songs can build a little bit and take a little bit of time to like hit that high note, you know?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah,
It's
go ahead.
sorry, I was just gonna say it's a bit I think of for me that kind of classical music influence there, where there's kind of a more programmatic like build, you know, that they do with some of their songs, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I have my body and stuck in my head from earlier, and I was just thinking about his voice. It's so unique in my opinion. He's got this really interesting voice. Um but what I was looking at where it said current member, because they used to be called the Jakes. So what I'm looking at here is that there's 5 band members
hmm
and they all pretty much play the same thing.
Yeah.
So is it like they just switch off and do like roll call and just like switch it out, or
So what I think is going on in this Wikipedia entry is like I think they've had like different roles like during the band's history. So like Samir, like when I've seen him live, I have not seen him really pick up anything other than like a tambourine or a shaker.
okay?
Um and uh Francois, the drummer, carries a lot of the backing vocals.
Okay.
So occasionally, I guess, yeah, the other guitarist, Eric Hanada, will sing too. Payam is almost exclusively bass guitar. I think they just have some tracks where there is no bass guitar, so he'll do something else.
Okay.
Um,
That makes sense.
and Jacob is kind of the Swiss Army knife. He'll either be second guitar or keyboard or synthesizer.
That's cool.
Although Eric, I guess, sometimes will do keyboard. So yeah, they do kind of switch things around, but Eric is kind of the lead guitarist. So he mostly does guitar. Jacob is the guy that I think jumps around to different stuff the most. Um,
Yeah, that's really
Hyam's the bassist.
fascinating.
Yeah. So they're all really solid musicians. Francois has a really nice singing voice. I think I've never heard him belt, and my guess is he's probably not comfortable doing that. But he could be.
Right.
But just what I've heard with like his voice, it definitely suits him to be just kind of a filling out the sound like a gentler, like really nice singer. Um, but yeah, I think um, and also in this band, it's just Samir's voice like is Young the Giant sound, you know, like
Yeah.
you hear it and you think of the band. So it would be, you know, n- n- he can't be replaced as the lead singer. I don't think.
Right.
I could see like maybe they do like release a song or something where they have somebody else sing, but it would definitely be like a, you know,
B
it would
track.
not, yeah, it'd be somewhere. um but that was actually something in their earlier albums that like they didn't really do. I think at first they would let him like layer over his own voice in songs instead of having other band members sing, but when they went live they were like, oh,
Right.
now we're like missing backing singers, so then the other members started stepping in and started singing. And so they do all that live, and it's pretty awesome. So do you have, I guess, so of course, My Body,
Mhm.
but do you have like, I guess, favorite tracks, or what's your experience with the group? Because you said you really liked them.
Yeah, so I have their album Young the Giant. Um and that's when I first really got them. I need to see their discography, please. Okay. Um, they're not going to tell me all the pieces. Oh, yeah, they are. Because if I click it, it'll tell
Yeah,
me.
it'll give you the listing.
Right. And so we've got, yeah, My Body Apartment Cough Syrup. Um, and then,
The big ones.
yeah, I knew those because I heard them all the time.
Yeah.
I Got was a good one.
Oh, I love that one.
And then I think Islands, I think, was another one.
Ooh, yeah. That one's got a little bit of yeah, that has some of that atmosphere. It's kind of a softer
Yeah.
song. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is very cool. Um, I was gonna say, and this goes for anybody that hasn't heard of the band. I used to struggle with like where to direct them to go and listen, but they released earlier this year, like maybe a month ago, a live album that like
Ooh.
it's like it's not one concert. They like compiled different performances from throughout their career, and so there's literally songs from like every album they've released in that live album. So it's just called Live Across America or something like that. Live in America, Live Across America. But it was like just released this year. Um, and that's where I would recommend, if you haven't heard the group, listen to that. You'll also get an appreciation for what we were talking about with Samir Gadia's singing.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty, I mean, he doesn't need the pitch correction. If they're doing it, it's because they're going for a specific sound, but
Yeah.
he's completely in control of what he's doing up there. He doesn't need the help.
No,
But
I
yeah,
agree.
I think that's what it's called, Live Across America or something. But it has I Got is one of the songs that they chose to put on there.
Oh, okay.
And that performance he does some crazy like soaring falsetto near the end. It's so good. It's like it, I'm exaggerating when I say this, but I'm gonna say it because it's funny for effect. But
Yeah.
it ruined the original song for me. Like
Oh, yeah.
I just want to listen to the live version now because the way he sings it is so cool.
Yeah.
He
Do you know something corporate? The song Constantine.
I'm not sure I do.
The reason I'm saying that is because he does a live version, and every freaking live version he does it different. And every single time I'm
Yeah.
like, I like that version better. And then the next one comes out, and I'm like, no, wait, I like that one better.
That's cool. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so you get that. I mean, with a bigger outfit, it is harder, I think. Like a bigger group, it's harder to branch out sometimes and do more different things. Um, unless you're a jam band like the Grateful Dead, where that's the formula, that's like
right.
what you're supposed to do. Um, but it can be hard with a group like Young the Giant because they are more like programmatic, where there's like a progression that things are supposed to go through. Um, but yeah, Samir finds his way, and I think sometimes Eric Kanata, the lead guitarist, he'll mix things up a tiny bit. And oh my goodness, have you ever heard? And then we'll move on. But have you heard Tightrope from Young the Giant?
Yes.
The bass line in that song is insane. Um, it's so like it changes throughout. Like at first you just think it's like one thing that's happening the whole time,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a second line that they do that's like it's so fun. It's just so creative. I love it.
It sounds so
Anyway,
familiar to me, Tightrope, and I
yeah.
feel like I would have heard it, but you
It's
are
one of
also
their
so attuned to music more than I am because you play so many instruments and you are like music
I would
incorporated.
s- I would say it's probably going to be one of those songs that they will always play on every tour because of how much fun it is to like dance along to and stuff.
Got it.
Um, I think Samir typically like quite literally brings out the cowbell for it. So yeah, so it's just like it's just so much fun. It's just got that little kind of shuffle to it. Yeah, so
Yeah.
um yeah, if you guys are looking for a fun song, Tightrope is definitely one. Yeah,
All right.
cool.
Well, yeah, I went from music to music, so I went to U2's 360 tour.
Ah, yes.
Tell me more.
So, I went to this concert. It wasn't there, but it looked exactly like that. Um, Back in 2009,
Hmm.
and I wasn't supposed to go to this concert. It was supposed to be my my mom and my dad and my aunt and uncle were all supposed to go together. But my aunt got sick, and so mom and dad took me and my sister. And I liked you too. You know, like my mom particularly loved you too. That was why my they got the tickets. It's like my dad's like birthday present for her. And my aunt also had a birthday in the same month. So um, he and my uncle kind of collaborated to get them tickets and go together. But but yeah, after that concert, I loved you too. Like I just um obviously you can see from the pictures like the staging is insanely over the top and elaborate. So yeah, so that is the screen that each one of those little parts, you saw the first picture, they can collide together to make one giant screen, or they can be kind of separated out and like strobe individually.
Right.
um and I guess what I really enjoyed about that experience was just being in a stadium with like 70,000 people, like all singing together, was incredible. And as big and outlandish as it was,
Hmm.
um, and as much as like, especially Bono in particular, has the reputation of, you know, being a little self indulgent and like making it about himself. There's a moment in the show where he just gestured to the Edge, the guitarist, and they were playing just an acoustic song. It's called Stuck in a Moment. And he just let him like sing the bridge by himself and play by himself.
Aw.
Like it
Stuck
was such
in
a
a moment and you can't
yes.
get out
Yeah,
of it.
exactly.
Okay, cool. I was like, I think I
Yeah.
know that.
So there's that part near the end, you know.
Yeah.
And if the night runs over. And so he like sang that whole part.
Oh, that's great.
Um and yeah, there's just like it felt, as weird as it sounds, like it was a huge concert experience, but it felt very intimate. Um, and I think that was the tightrope they were trying to walk with, like making the big staging. It helped help people like us who were like sitting in the upper deck of this stadium really far away. We could still be tuned into what was going on through like the big screen. You know, we
Yeah.
could see like their faces and stuff and know what was going on. And at one point, it was definitely planned, but it was still a really cool moment. He brought a kid up onto the stage. Actually, they had like a big catwalk that went around in a circle. Like even they had a circular stage, and then there was a walk that, yeah, you can see it in that picture. You see that walk that goes around the outside of the stadium.
Uh-huh.
So sometimes the band members would come out there and play, particularly the Edge would like to come out and get out there and be, you know, in a different spot. But they pulled a kid up there, and for the City of Blinding Lights, they like Bono and him kind of like raced around the circle, and they had him just um like they let him take the glasses, and he was supposed to kind of, Bono gave him his sunglasses, his, you know, his famous
Yeah.
sunglasses, and let him kind of like go around the catwalk and stuff. It was silly but dramatic and cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just appreciated yeah, it changed the way that I think about um I used to kind of turn my nose up at like some of the like the bigger acts, if you will, that would just like use all this, in my opinion, like extra stuff.
Right.
But like seeing that concert, I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. Like
Right.
I understand why they're doing all this extra stuff.
Can you
It really
imagine
made a
wrapping?
difference.
Can you imagine wrapping this up and taking it on tour?
You know what's really funny about that?
What?
I read about this.
Yes.
So they it was so elaborate and so hard to build that they had to have three separate ones because they couldn't get to the tour locations fast enough. So there were three versions of that exact same stage because they couldn't do one fast
Wow.
enough. So they would be literally like, they would have to have different crews set up the different ones in their next stops, like, you know,
Wow.
while they were performing at another one.
That's
So
crazy.
completely insane.
Yeah.
So even though it's like at one point it was the highest grossing tour of all time. Um, and to this day, I know it's still up there. But even with that, they they didn't turn a huge profit because of how expensive the
The stage
staging was.
was. Yeah.
And all the operation of making that concert was so expensive. Um, so which is pretty wild to think about, because I mean I mean they literally had 70,000 people in this stadium that holds like 55,000,
Right.
but they could put is a football stadium, so they could put people like on
On
the
the
field, which is where
fields.
the extra numbers came from.
Right.
um yeah, and I felt bad for some people. Traffic was a nightmare getting to that show, and allegedly there were some people that didn't get make it to the show because of how bad the traffic
Oh
was.
no.
Yeah, it was a nightmare for some, but when we got there, we actually Muse opened
Oh
for you too.
wow.
so so we got to see a bit of Muse. We're actually late for Muse, but we got to see them. And they did a great job. Of course, they didn't get the benefit of all the extra lights and sound. They had a little bit of lighting and stuff, but it was also like not yet dark when they got on stage. So that also kind of, made it, yeah, like
Yeah.
not as engaging visually, but yeah, they have such a great sound. They're definitely a fun group to see live as well.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Yeah, at the time it's 736 million in ticket sales for the highest attended tour with over 7.2 million tickets sold.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
And
So
then,
and
Taylor Swift comes in and just with
yeah,
Eras tour.
yeah, exactly. Insanity.
Yeah.
Um, and it's kind of funny. It's like they're definitely a group that'll be remembered for doing this kind of thing, like the kind of
Yeah.
this super visual presentation. They were always, probably since like the 90s. They had, I think, the Pop Mart um tour or something like that was at the time like extremely elaborate. um
This is
I know
the
Michael Jackson had some elaborate setups as well. He would do some crazy things. So it's kind of like Michael Jackson and U2 were kind of the acts that really took that visual presentation to like the next level,
yeah.
in terms of things that they would do. Um, and um, the paradox of U2, especially with the Pop Mart thing, is like they were kind of trying to, in a way, like make fun of modern media culture while like putting screens everywhere.
Right.
Like it's just like so typical of them. There's like actually a whole thing that Bono does where he has a character that he calls Mr. McFisto,
Okay.
and he's kind of like this, Luciferian, troublemaker character. And in his words, it's like him like making fun of the devil by like pretending to be, this manipulative, weird kind of person or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like it's they do like really weird. Oh, I that was the second time I saw U2 in concert. Was that picture that one?
Okay.
Um, that is, can you see him? He's actually standing. This is a catwalk. He's standing inside. Um, that is a transparent screen. So like he's like interacting with
Oh,
that
that's
display.
cool.
It is so insane. They actually started that show so that catwalk can lower to where I guess that's the edge, or maybe that's the bassist. I can't tell from that picture if that's um Adam Clayton is the bassist. I can't tell if that's him or not, or if that's the Edge from the back. But either way, they started that show. Um, you heard the music, and they were actually all inside that screen, that catwalk up there, but you couldn't see them. It's just the screen was fully illuminated, and so you couldn't even see that they were in there. And then
Mm,
slowly it would be less illuminated. You get flashes, and you would realize, oh, there they are. They're actually inside that thing.
that's so cool.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. I'll have to like share some pictures with you that I got from that one. Um, yeah, because it's so hard to describe all the stuff that was happening there.
Yeah. No, that sounds amazing. And it's funny, you two just put out a song and we were listening to it in my in-laws' car because they were listening to Sirius Radio. And we were like, this sounds nothing like you two.
Mm,
Like we weren't mad about it. It sounded really
yeah.
good, but it sounded really
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
indie, like alternative.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I couldn't explain it, but it's their most recent song that was out and I was really surprised at how their sound had changed and if they were changing because of the fan base they're trying to create or if it changed because, just like other generations of singers and songwriters, the music just changes over time.
That's always an interesting question with them. Because uh also like since they're such a big band, like there is obviously a commercial element to trying to sell your music and um trying to, if you will, keep up with the industry or be ahead of the industry, if you will. I do know that they like, just from interviews and stuff, that they are like always like interested in trying something new.
Mhm.
So like it naturally leads to them changing their sound. I mean, to be honest, like if you listen to um Octung Baby and you listen to the Joshua Tree, those are two like very successful, popular, famous albums. But other than Bono singing the vocals, they don't sound
No, the
like they're
sound
from
is
the same band, you
right.
know?
Mhm.
Um, like they really don't. So they've kind of always been changing. But yeah, it is interesting. I feel like what's started to happen a little bit more is that I think they've allowed themselves to be influenced by like other, like you said, like, oh, this sounds more like a indie group or something. Like I think they've allowed themselves to be influenced by stuff that they're listening to and actually, engaging with like what's, popular music, like what they like to listen to maybe is like influences them to like create something.
Yeah.
Um yeah.
Huh.
So that's something I feel like I've noticed. And yeah, and I will definitely defend the band as far as it's not unlike what Taylor Swift is going through with, you just become at one point so exposed that people who are not interested in you, they're still hearing about you anyway, and there's
Right.
like, oh my god, give it a break, I'm so tired of hearing about. So I totally I totally get that kind of
That's funny.
I get that attitude. If it's something that I'm not interested in, and I keep hearing about it. I I I definitely was this way in high school, and I didn't put it on my list because I don't really feel that strongly anymore. But I was really annoyed with the Mean Girls movie. Like I didn't think it was funny, and
Really?
like everybody else loves the movie, so I'm
Oh
just
my
like, I'd be
gosh.
hearing it's October 3rd, and I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever. Like if this is the only day I have to hear about it, okay. But yeah, I don't know. I think it was, I was very fortunate in high school to really avoid a lot of drama. Um, and so I just when I saw that movie, I was like, oh, like they're just like being mean to each other. But I get like now I understand that like of course like people find it funny because they're kind of like satirizing, you know, bullies. Like they're
Yeah.
making fun of like how ridiculous it is for people to like bully each other like this. But at the time, I was just, especially as like when I saw it, like in high school or whatever, it's like, this is not, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but you know, I don't I don't know, like I'm not like eager to watch it again, but I wonder how I would feel about like watching it now.
The writing is so good in a way that I was 13 when this came out.
Yeah.
So in a way that my 13-year-old self was like, holy shit, I get it. And then as I grow up and I watch the movie again, I'm like, oh my God, there's so much stuff I didn't get. And this is still really funny. So when you can
Yeah.
like play through the ages on it, I think
Mhm.
that's what makes a really interesting movie. But if
Yeah.
you can't relate to a movie, if you aren't a teenage girl who has gotten bullied,
Mhm.
Ryan, then you may not find
Right.
it as funny.
Right,
And
right.
that's okay. Like
Yeah.
I don't slam you for it, but
Yeah. No, I mean that's definitely it. It just I was very very privileged and like it kind of was I realized how interesting my school experience was because I did end up going to the same school as like made friends like when I was like I the last time I moved schools was like or the last time I kind of switched I switched schools like a bit as an elementary school kid, but like in 3rd grade and basically onward I was with a lot of the same kids. We like they weren't all the same school, but actually I had a elementary and middle school together and then went to a high school that was where most of the kids from my school went to. So
right.
like I kind of had this set in group of friends that really helped and like
Yeah.
um and I was always kind of I
Chameleon.
wasn't a social butterfly. Yeah, like I actually had a friend tell me like he said they went to some school assembly and basically he's like it was me like, considered himself I guess to be kind of a nerdy guy and like and then there was an empty seat in this popular girl and I was like Ryan's probably the only person that could sit in that seat and just be like comfortable sitting there
Right. Oh my God, that's so funny.
because I actually the girl he talked about I actually knew from this was in high school, but I knew her like from when we were like, I think she moved into my school when we were like in 5th grade. So like,
Oh wow, okay.
so it was like before any of the weird like, social cliques started to have. Well, I don't know. I guess in
Yeah.
5th grade you can get social cliques pretty early on, but that was kind of my I
Third
didn't
grade. Third grade Ryan is the answer. Third grade is when
3rd grade.
social clicks start to happen, at
Yeah.
least for me.
Yeah. So I kind of I mean like I had kind of a clique, but we didn't we were pretty laid back. Like it would just be like if somebody else like hung out with us, be like, "Oh, hey, what's going on?" Like,
Right.
it's a little different, of course. Um, but yeah, and yeah, I didn't. I think every. I actually, it's so funny. I was invited to the prom as a sophomore. That was a big deal.
Ooh.
Um, one of my friends who was a junior, wanted somebody to go with and asked me. Um, but each year I went to prom, I went with a different group of people, like which I feel like is a diff
Yeah.
is kind of sums up where I was socially. So yeah, so didn't connect a lot to the clique scene of Mean Girls. Like I didn't have that experience at all.
It was weird because I was in a clique, but I was like at the bottom of the totem pole in the clique kind of thing. because I went to performing arts high school, and so we were with the same 20 people for 4 years.
Oh wow.
And so you had your outside curriculum. It was like a magnet school. So you still had your outside, like history, math, whatever.
Hmm.
But by the end of the day or the beginning of the day, you're with the same 20 people. And so I was like, yay, I have this family that I'm with. And then they're like, hey, you don't actually live here. You live 30 minutes away because you were allowed to go to one of 6 schools. Had I stayed in the school that I was already in the same region as me, I would have done fine. But because I went to a performing high school, which is 30 minutes away, that I had to take the short bus to because there was only so many people who was coming from that area,
Hmm.
I didn't get to have all those experiences that everybody else did. So I didn't even get to be in a musical until senior year because I could drive to it.
Oh.
So it was weird. It was like clicky, but it was like not clicky,
Yeah.
but it was clicky. So anyway,
Yeah, the theater kids kind of scared me a little bit.
yeah.
like um like it was so funny because I was a choir boy in high school. So like the theater kids knew I could sing,
Mhm.
so they like recruited me heavily to like come join musical theater because especially when we were growing up, this was before Pitch Perfect and High School Musical. They
Yeah.
kind of helped. They kind of helped make singing like cool again for guys. Like there was
Mhm.
a period where it was like you it wasn't cool to be a guy singer a little bit, you know.
Mhm.
Um, at least that's how it was at like in my school a little bit. But but I kind of was able to walk that line. Like people didn't try to bully me or make fun of me for it. Um,
Well,
but
that's
um,
good.
yeah. I didn't experience any of that. And again, I think I just kind of I feel like if I had enough like friends that like if there was somebody talking trash, then one of my friends would be like, "No, that's Ryan. Like he's
He's
cool.
cool.
Like."
He's cool. The guy you bring to the party, he's like, you go to a college party, but you're actually a sophomore in like high school, and they're like, no, it's Ryan. He's cool. He's cool.
I definitely did not have that experience. I was not. I was not in the. I was not in a hurry to like grow up. You know.
Got it.
Um, but yeah. It was. I lost my train of thought of where I was gonna go with that. It had something to do with oh gosh. It's gone. I
It's
have no
fine.
idea where I was going with it. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
It's probably a good time to move on from that anyway.
We're gonna talk about Cucurbita.
I just wanted to say I don't like squash,
Okay.
but there was no Wikipedia entry for squash. And so I learned, oh, this is the like anatomical name or whatever for different types of squash. Yeah. So
Squash.
like
Okay.
um
So,
my
yeah, tell me about it.
my my mom liked this recipe with cooked and steamed squash, and the consistency of it is horrible to me. It's just like goop, just slime. It's to me, it's like if you picked up the Nickelodeon slime and tried to eat it. Like that's what cooked squash is for me. It's dreadful. So my dad was like really big on like at the time like you have to like eat everything on your plate. And so like I was trying to eat it and then I like practically like gagged on on it. And then it was kind of like a light bulb went off for both my parents of like, oh, maybe we shouldn't force him to eat this. He's clearly like having a hard time with this. And so they didn't make me eat that anymore. And they also gave my sister an exception for mashed potatoes. She has a weird thing with mashed potatoes. She says the consistency is horrible, but it's just like, I mean, it's just like I don't know. It's kind of like whipped cream or something like that. Like it's not. I don't know. But also like I understand that a lot of people don't have that experience with like squash when it's cooked. But for me, it's just the worst. So yeah, so I don't like it.
I'm still reeling on the mashed potatoes issue. I'm
Yeah,
still
she's actually warmed up to it a little bit. She realized she could kind of mix it up with other foods, and
not
then
as
it's
bad.
fine. Then she doesn't have to deal with that consistency as much. Like because it's with other foods. Um,
Yeah.
but she doesn't really. And it is definitely something I'm like, oh, you put some mashed potatoes on your plate. but like to this day, like God bless her. I don't know if she's still listening, but my mom has not served squash when I've been around.
That's amazing.
uh, yeah,
I do like squash. I like it, but I don't love it.
yeah.
You give me some spaghetti. You give me some spaghetti squash, and I'm like, but do you have spaghetti? Like, can I change that order? I need to know. This is probably gonna. Well, I'm between two right now, so I'm gonna go to
Okay.
the one that I need to know first because
Okay.
I can quote every single line ever, which is Homestar Runner.
Oh yes, Homestar Winner.
Yeah,
I'm a terrific athlete.
yeah, homestarrunner.net. It's .com.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, yes, uh yeah, you of course remember the early days of animate video content on the internet.
Yep.
And this was like peak entertainment if you were a certain influential age back in the 2000s. And yeah, my sister and I loved like quoting this to each other. Um, my cousin introduced it to us, and it's really funny because I think he liked it and thought it was funny, but we became obsessed with it, and so like we me and my sister are only 15 months apart in age, so we went to the same school a lot.
Right.
And actually, when we were in grade school, our mom was teaching at the school that we were at. So we had to get to school really early with her because she had to get ready for work and stuff.
Right.
And so we would just kind of sign into the computers and watch Homestar Runner before we went to school in the mornings. That's usually what we did.
That's
Um,
amazing.
so yeah, so we like our favorite bit was the answering machine, Marzipan's answering machine, where they particularly how Strong Bad would try to prank call her and be like, "Hello, Marzipan. This is goldfish. It's not like my head is a goat's head, but like my face is like an entire goat."
Yeah,
So yeah,
Marzipan's answering machine right here.
yeah,
Yep.
and I really included it because like to this day I have a lot of fun just like playing around with my voice and movie quotes and stuff. So I have a channel point redeem on my channel called Box of Chocolates, which is from Forrest Gump, where he says,
Right.
Mama always said life was like a box of chocolates.
Right.
So if people redeem that, then I'll just throw out a random like voice impression or movie
Yes.
character at them just to have some fun. So yeah, so that's a thing that definitely something that my sister and I would get on with, and definitely entertain the family with quoting movies and TV shows. Homestar Runner was really big. Um, so was the Elf movie around
Oh
this
my
time of year.
God, yes. I quote the Elf movie so often. What's the one that besides Francisco, besides that one,
Oh,
I also do I'll have to think about it, but there's also one that I literally do year round, and and you have to change the batteries in the smoke detector. Double A's, you're gonna have to change them again. Like when somebody is explaining something to me and they're like explaining like a pity something, like, oh yeah, you can hold the wrench. And I'll be like, oh yeah, double A's. You can next year. Like, that's how
Yeah.
I feel. So I quote that all year round. But anyway, go ahead. So, quoting movies.
Yeah. Quoting movies, TV shows. I mean, my sister did do the whole theater thing in high school,
Mm-hmm.
which is another reason why I stayed away from the theater kids. We were a bit a bit competitive.
Mm.
Um, I would say I would say she was a lot more competitive than me. But because of that, we kind of both kind of found our own lanes for the most part.
Yeah. There you go.
The greatest conflict we had was I dated her best friend in high school. So she did not love that very much.
Ooh.
But to be fair, like it was quite literally her I was an oblivious high school boy. I had no idea that that she liked me, and
Right.
she had to her best friend had to like kind of spell it
Oh,
out for me that
yeah.
that that she like wrote me a note that was like you she didn't say you dumb boy, but she
Right.
should have. She's like, I like you. And I was kind of like, whoa. To me, it was like I had no idea. And so I
Right.
literally like avoided her when she handed after she handed me the note. I avoided her the rest of that day because I didn't even know what to think about it. I was like, wait,
I was usually the note writer. See,
uh,
there are a lot of dumb boys in my life, and I was usually the note writer.
yeah.
But I was also looking at Teen Girl Squad, the
Oh
cheerleader,
yes.
so and so. What's her
The
face?
ugly one.
The ugly one. Yeah, there was an Easter
Oh
egg.
god. That was like
Arrowed.
yeah, children. That was my favorite. Is some guy like driving a van just all of a sudden like bowls them over. It's if anybody in chat is like super confused, like why is that funny? That's kind of the point. It's like, why do I find this funny? Like it's
Right.
just it's so absurd. The whole thing. Um
Were you
yeah.
ever part of the I am a banana, my spoon is too big? Were you ever part of that one? That's not Homestar Runner. That's peak.
Yeah.
That's like E-Bomb's World.
Okay, so I didn't really watch E-Bomb's World, but I definitely had friends that watched E-Bomb's World. So
Yeah.
that's how I think I know it, is like hearing friends like quote it. Did they do something about like the end of the world? Is
Yeah,
that
Ends of
also
the
an
World.
E-Bomb's World
Yes,
thing?
yes.
Yeah.
You've got an us with nukes and fires and missiles, but I'm lit tired. Fine,
Yep.
take a nap. Then fires and missiles.
Yeah. Oh man. Wow.
Yeah.
Core memories unlocked, right? But yeah, so I wanted to include this because it is like just kind of absurd, like I don't know, just kind of absurd, like quoting things. And for me, it's like really fun to try and find a context that makes sense to use some of them.
Mm-hmm.
That could be kind of fun too. So um yeah, it's one of my definitely one of my quirkier habits for sure.
Do you remember at all there was an Easter egg that happened on the site? And
Ooh.
once you figured out the Easter egg, you can have Homestar say anything that you want with like the certain tiles. So, but you had to get him to say it right. So, like, marzipan is a marshmallow, and like once you got that right, then you had access to this weird portion where they're
Huh.
like, "All right, Homestar Runner, you need to go ahead and say, it's homestarrunner.com." And so he's like, homestarrunner.net. They're like, no, it's .com. He's like, sorry. Homestarrunner.net. It's .com. Like, that is one of my all-time favorite quotes that I will say every time.
Yeah.
Homestarrunner.net. It's .com.
Actually, I think my favorite quote is like in that same bit where Strong Bad is talking about the Goat Face Club, he's like, anyway, if you would like to be a member, just give us a call. Our number is.
Making out with marzipan is totally awesome. Oh my god, Rohomo, yes.
Romo.
Yes. That's the same
Romo
thing where you
knows.
had to put the words in.
Whoa, homo, my main band, my ace of the hole.
Making out with marzipan is totally awesome. That's
And
exactly.
I also enjoy that like it doesn't there's so many things about that universe that don't make sense. Like Homestar just doesn't have arms and it just is that way. And then like Pom Pom can't speak. Like he doesn't physically speak words, but then like everybody understands what he's saying.
Right.
And kind of the same with the cheat.
The cheat. Stop playing with the light switch. This isn't a rape.
I was raised by a cup of coffee. Hey, King Dambreaker, welcome in as
Welcome
well.
in, guys. Okay. I thank you so much for taking me down. When I saw Homestar Runner, I was like, I'm so proud. What I'm really interested though, and this one made your list, and I was really fascinated, and I know I'm gonna get a good story and education about this, and that's not sarcasm. Why do you hate Spotify?
So a few reasons. Um, I think the big thing for me has been I don't like not having control over the media. Like I don't like that basically like if something happened to Spotify, all of the playlists that I made would be gone. You know
Because
what I mean?
because you don't own
Like
the music, and the music stays
cuz
within the
like
app.
what I have is I still live in the early 2000s of like paying for digital downloads. And so my music library is like stored like on my computer and it's backed up and I never have to worry about advertisements. I don't have to worry about paying a subscription every month. If I really want to listen to something, I just buy the album and then I can listen to it endlessly and never worry about advertisements. And if I don't buy an album that month, then hey, I just saved some money. I didn't pay for a
Right.
subscription that I didn't need. So I just kind of feel like we kind of walked into this freemium way of listening to music that like isn't great. Like I feel like the digital downloads was way better.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about, oh, what if I don't have this playlist downloaded and I run out of reception and now I can't listen to my music, you know? Like it's these kinds of things that like I think people have just accepted and it's like, why are we and they compress audio a lot of times. So like what you're listening to is not the way that it was mastered and supposed to be listened to.
Right.
So all of those things are like why I personally don't like it. And then of course there's the added, kind of political element of like artists not being compensated very well for, the streams that are happening. So that's kind of the more obvious thing that people fixate on. So just like I would, I would, I would not shed a single tear if Spotify went and we had to reinvent the wheel again.
Yeah.
Like, because we've done it before. Like, that's the thing is like we've had changes, so many changes we've been through with listening to music, and yet music has prevailed, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, Spotify is king right now, but I'm really kind of just it's king for most of the world, but not for me, and I'm not gonna, belabor the point, as I maybe, I mean, I understand the benefits, I guess, to like, um, oh, I just know I'm gonna subscribe every month, and I can literally access any song I want, and uh, yada yada yada. But yeah, but that's just kind of yeah, that's why.
No, that makes sense to me. And it's funny because Galvos has all of his music backed up as well.
Sorry, I'm laughing at Rehobo's comment. Spotify
Spotify's
on
on
vinyl is
vinyl.
way better.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, Galvos has it stuck on this hard. I have a bunch of his songs on here, taking up a bunch of memory. And I'm like, you could just listen to these on Spotify. And he's like, I don't wanna. And I was like, okay. I like that it lets me discover new music. That's what we like about it. Is that it's weird. His parents, Galves's parents, know sometimes more music than we do,
Mm,
just because of the um Sirius radio, and then they have that, alternative beats on cable, where they, you put it on cable
mm,
television and it runs through music and all that stuff. So they actually know more music than we do, because we end up listening to a lot of the same songs we know,
mm-hmm.
unless we listen to like indie beats playlist, and then it's like, here's a bunch of songs you don't know, and we're like, sweet.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. I guess like because I'm like in this world of music a lot. Like I do end up either just like through people I'm connected with or whatever. I'll discover music that way,
Right.
or it is sometimes. I mean, I do like a lot of times I'll actually do like a first listen of songs like on YouTube and then be like, am I going to listen to this again? And then I'll like go out and buy the album. Or if it's like, that's the other thing is I really love listening to albums. I'm not as big on like kind of
Singles.
mixing and mashing a bunch of different, songs into a playlist together. Um, I do that sometimes. Like I create my own playlists, but um, especially like for if I'm hosting any kind of event, just a little gathering, I like to, maybe curate a little bit of a playlist. And that's kind of fun. But I also really, really like listening to albums, and that um is that's another smaller reason why I don't like Spotify, is because they're incentivizing artists not to make full albums anymore.
Hmm.
Because you can't get as many plays if you release a whole album, because there's more songs to get through.
Yeah.
Whereas if you release 4 songs here and then 4 songs here and then 4 songs here, then each section is going to get more plays because people are repeating that one and they're waiting for the next 4 to drop, So
Yeah.
like people are releasing albums in pieces now instead of like releasing a full album. That's what Young the Giant did with their last album, American Bollywood, and I know it was a a profit motive and not an artistic motive to do that. Which I'm not going to fault them for it. I'm faulting the system for it.
Yeah.
Um,
Give me two of your favorite no skip albums.
well, one is in that list, Continuum.
We'll get to that in a second.
Um, there's a ton because I mean that's just uh
Well, let's just talk about Continuum. I didn't realize that was your no skip album, so let's check it out. Dude, John Mayer.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so like this is tying something else together.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it doesn't even have to be aliens, but like if somebody knew nothing about American music, I'd be like, why don't you start with this? It's not nothing could get a complete picture of American music. It's way too broad.
Right.
But there's a lot of different influences of different parts of American music like in this album. Conspicuously missing is of course hip hop and rap, but there's kind of elements of jazz, of disco, of rhythm and blues, of rock, obviously pop. There's elements of all of that like in this album. So a lot of people know the big hits: "Waiting on the World to Change," "Gravity." Um, I feel like "Slow Dancing in a Burning Room" has picked up a lot of steam. There was, I think, like a K-pop artist that covered that song, and I think that helped it like find new life with like Generation Z.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty impressive ballad. And actually, um, my favorite might be "Stop This Train," which is like a finger style ballad. But yeah, so like I tell people, like, if you, especially because John Mayer, his first two albums and his early big hits were very samey. Like they fell into this, pop rock, adult contemporary um, style, which he did very well, in my opinion. But also people, I think, were like, oh, that's that guy, the daughter singer. But like on this album, it really goes through a whole journey. Vultures is the one that feels a little bit Bee Gees like almost, which is not an influence you would expect from John Mayer.
No.
Yeah, so he's really like, that's I I mean, I could talk a lot about him, but his music, like, um I recognize in him somebody that really loves like American music and loves a lot of different kinds of music.
Yeah.
And you hear that in his releases, because ever since Continuum, he's like reinvented his music a whole lot. Like with each album, it's pretty different from one to the next. Sometimes I really liked it, and then other times it's like, this isn't quite as much for me.
Right.
But I've always appreciated like him reinventing himself and like taking these influences and reinventing them in kind of a tasteful way, like not just straight, you know,
Right.
copying something, but doing, kind of putting his own little spin on it. But yeah, but that's an album that's like no skip. Like honestly, if if you're willing to give John Mayer a chance, if you hadn't before, that is a fantastic album. One of my favorite albums from any artist. Um, Steve Jordan is the drummer for a lot of the tracks. He's one of my favorites. Um, Gosh, that "Waiting on the World to Change." Um, there's that. Oh gosh, I have to do it now. There's his drum part is so, it's just a simple little change that makes like all the difference in the world, which is very funny considering the title of the song. But you know how a lot of songs will get a little bit of the yeah, this will work. A lot of the songs you'll get a little bit of the so that's kind of how it starts. But the unique thing about it is where it ends up. The last the last snare is late. Like normally you would expect it to just be 1, 2, 3, 4, but instead it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. So
Got it.
it's like it's such a cool little thing that like just completely changes how the song feels, and he doesn't do it every single time, but like every other time. So it's just a little like,
Something different.
yeah, it's just a little something different. He's such an amazing drummer. Steve Jordan has played. Oh gosh, now I'm not going to remember all the people he's played with, um, but that was another key that like, or another clue that like John Mayer is just like a big, like just American music like fan. Like he just really listens to stuff.
Let's see.
People are saying that Twitch, they hear a lot of new music on Twitch
Twitch. Yeah, the same here.
and discover it there.
Listen to all this as a side man. Arcadia, Patty Austin, the Bee Gees, Beyonce, John Mayer, Bruno Mars, Ziggy Marley.
I mean, look at it. Like, like that's a huge, diverse list of people that all wanted him to play with them, right?
Kelly Clarkson,
Which
John
tells you something
Mellencamp.
about Steve Jordan's versatility and talent. And it makes him, I think, the perfect, a great find for John Mayer because of the way that he tries to diversify his music.
That's
When I
cool.
saw John Mayer live, Steve was the drummer then. Um, and yeah, he's just awesome. He's always in control and um, doing a lot, but never like too much.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, there he is.
Like he doesn't have quite the reputation that some other more famous drummers do because he's not as he's not as big into just like he's not like a showmanship kind of a drummer. He's just
A good drummer.
really, yeah, he's just really focused on right. He's just really into the sound, I think. And so like the way that he gets into the sound is he's pretty stoic back there. He might see a little head moving, a little bit, but other than that, he's pretty calm, cool, and collected no matter what's going on. Um and so yeah, he's awesome.
That's awesome. Oh, that's cool. That's a good no skip album from. I know a few of the songs, but I'll definitely have to go check out the whole album again.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like and for every person it would be something different that might stand out to them.
Oh
Um,
yeah, for sure.
you know, because again, it is pretty diverse in my opinion. So, um,
We'll have to send it up to the what they do the space shuttle where they have like Elvis Presley and all that. We need to add some
I
John
would for
Mayer.
sure. I would put that album in there.
Yeah,
I would. Um, yeah.
that's cool. I would love to be in a band to say, "Hey, I'm up in space." That would be so cool. I mean, I didn't hit the top 100s, but I'm in friggin' space, so.
Yeah. Elon Musk could say the same thing. Sorry, I had to.
No, that was great. That was great. I love that. Okay, so we've got probably two more topics before I have to wrap up.
Cool.
Um,
Time flies when you're having fun.
yeah, I usually don't get through all of the 20 items, and I like it that way because that gives us a lot of free room and then also abilities to bring back, bring you back on.
Yeah.
Uh, Darjeeling tea.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting is I actually am not 100% sure how to pronounce it either.
Okay.
Um, because I thought it was Darjeeling,
Oh, okay.
like a longer E, but I'm not sure honestly because it is if maybe some of you might guess depending on how familiar you are, but it is a tea that comes from India.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as it says, it's in a particular part of India. I am more recent to drinking tea. Yeah. So I actually started my tea journey with Darjeeling tea,
Mm-hmm.
which is a weird one to start with because it's not very common here in the United States. But two of my good friends were getting married. They met at when they were in college. Um, um, One of my friends was an exchange was had what's the word? He had, I guess, gotten a student visa to study, and he was from India. And my other friend, she was from Maine. So when they found each other and fell in love and decided they were going to celebrate a wedding together, they gave us these little wedding favors of he had Darjeeling tea, loose leaf, and she offered some blueberry honey from Maine.
I was waiting for maple syrup, but that's it. The honey
But
is
yeah,
good.
maple syrup with tea would be a weird combo, but
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, so and for a little while I didn't touch it, but then one time when I got sick, I was never a big tea drinker. I was like, maybe I should heat up some of that tea. Maybe that'll help like soothe my throat. And not only did it soothe my throat, but it also like tasted delicious. I was not expecting it. Um and so to this day it remains one of my favorite types of tea, and I stopped drinking coffee just because I kind of realized physically for me Um, it's probably too much caffeine. I'm a little bit more caffeine sensitive than I originally realized.
Okay.
Uh, so yeah, so I sometimes have like issues with sleeping, and if I have a cup of coffee, I get the jittery leg going over
Oh
here.
yeah.
Just one cup. Just like one cup of coffee.
Oh
Like I'm
wow.
already jittery. So that's when I realized, yeah, I probably shouldn't be drinking coffee, even though I like the taste of it. And tea was a good substitute because it has, like, especially this, any variation of black tea has caffeine in it, but it's like, I
Mild.
think it's like half or even less
Yeah.
than what you would get in a cup of coffee. So it's kind of the right amount of caffeine for me to kind of get me going in the morning, and that just happens to be like the favorite one that I've come across so far is Darjeeling.
So is there any other teas that you have now since I mean, can you get Darjeeling tea? Like you said it's very uncommon to get.
Yeah, I've had trouble finding it. Um, the grocery store that I typically go to here, it was really sad when they discontinued the one thing that was selling it. So I have to like either go to another store to find it, but a lot of times now I pick up some Earl Grey, and if I'm really feeling like I need to treat myself, then I'll browse around different stores, see if I can find it. At some point, I might even just try to order it online from somewhere.
Yeah.
but um, but yeah. So typically now I do drink a lot of Earl Grey. That's what I prefer among the. I like the black teas more
Okay.
than the green teas. Um,
See, I love oolong.
mm, so oolong is yeah. I'm not as familiar with oolong tea. How would you describe it?
So it's to me it's like really yeah, so hold on, depending on the variety cell is popular in South China.
Hmm.
Um let me see. Different styles can flavor. They can be sweet and fruity. That's what I know. So, back when Tivana was a thing, before Starbucks bought it out, they had these samples. It was like a tea shop, right? So, do you know this? Do you know Tivana?
I'm vaguely familiar with Tivana. Yeah,
So it was a tea shop. It was really cool. There's all coffee shops and stuff, but then there was a tea shop. And you go in and they just have, all different types of teas that you can try.
nice,
You can smell. I mean, it was a really quaint little thing. We loved going in there and you would get samples of their like tea of the day,
cool,
and up against their back wall it was like when you see the Lego store and they've got the Lego things in the barrels like this, and you see the different colors and the blocks. It was like that but with tea. And you would go ahead and they would open it up and they'd get out all of the dried tea leaves and all the dried stuff that goes with the tea leaves, and mine had like little fruits in it with the oolong pieces. And so I think the one that I got, because it was all loose leaf, I think the one that I got was like had banana and two other things. So I really love banana. And so like it had like two other flavors, and I just remember like drinking this tea, and you could drink it cold or hot, and being like, this is the best tea I've ever had in my life. So oolong is where I like it.
cool. I will have to see if I can find some oolong tea as well.
Yeah. And I'm not a big tea drinker, but that one was really friggin' good. All right, so we've got a little bit left on your list, but it is 2 hour mark. So, is there anything that's on your list? I've got a few things here from your likes and dislikes that you really wanted to talk about that we didn't talk about.
I was trying to go back and look at my list. Uh, kind of on a similar note
Uh huh.
is the Fat Kafrau,
All right.
which is I just kind of I've become, especially as an adult, I've realized that I'm very much attracted to just like stronger flavors in general.
Mm hmm.
So this is a more spicy kind of a Thai dish. Um, and I would say like Darjeeling tea has kind of a different note than either, like, to me, like Earl Grey and English breakfast are very similar,
Okay.
but like with a blind taste test, I would have trouble telling them apart. But like Darjeeling is like instantly like, oh, I know that's Darjeeling.
So it's a bolder
Um,
taste.
yeah, yeah, it has a different, yeah, it's kind of in a different, almost, it is a black tea, but it tastes a little bit different than a typical black tea. So anyway, so with this is like kind of maybe a more, this is something I'll try to have at least, I'll try to have it like once a month from one of my favorite local restaurants that serves Thai cuisine.
Yum.
Um, and I got introduced to Thai cuisine when I was in college. There was a Thai restaurant in my college town that one of my friends wanted to go to. I was like, oh, okay, I'll try it. And I was just looking at the ingredients. I was like, basil and chili and garlic, and oh, that sounds yummy. And it was so good. And I happened to be there with a friend who said she lived in Thailand for several years. Which I would not have expected because she was not native to Thailand, but I guess her dad was in the military, and so they had like been stationed over in Thailand for a bit. And she said that the restaurant we were at, it's very authentic, and it reminds her of like how it was in Thailand, like having some of that food. And the
Nice.
local restaurant I'm at now is also very authentic, so I loved. It tastes a similar way, and that's the dish that I typically go for. Um, that whatever that sauce is, and however they do it, I know it's basil and chili and garlic, but it's so good, and it's actually pretty nutritious. I mean, they'll put a lot of vegetables mixed in there,
What's the
and
meat or what's the
typically chicken
okay.
is what I get with it. But you could do it with any meat, really. I think it'd be just fine. But I typically go with the chicken. That's what they suggest. But they let you replace it with like shrimp or um,
Duck.
beef or, yeah, maybe even duck. Yeah, I don't know if this restaurant. It's a restaurant that I go to is a little bit more of just,
The
it's
basics.
kind of a hole in the wall.
Right.
It's like it's not a very well advertised, or it's not a chain restaurant or anything. But that's also how you sometimes you find those gems, that are
Yeah.
just a lot of love and care is put into it, and the care is more into the culinary experience than into the marketing and everything else. So,
Yeah, I just found a Greek restaurant that's like this hole in the wall, and what's weird
ooh.
is that it's literally next to, like, parallel, like, intersection, whatever, to another Greek restaurant. And I'm like, this is so real. Like, this is exactly what a Greek restaurant should have, is a battling Greek restaurant.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting how, yeah, there are a lot of situations, particularly with like fast food, where they do that, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, hmm,
Yeah, Burger King on one corner, but then a McDonald's on the
yeah,
exact next door.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, all right.
interesting. So
Okay.
yeah, I just thought that kind of tied in nicely.
Yeah, I think so too, and it looks really good. You lost me at spicy, but it still looks very
Oh,
good.
I took my friend to this restaurant one time, and I was like, okay, so they ask you like, how spicy do you want it? And I told him, just say normal. Like, don't ask for spicy.
Right.
And that's what I always get is the normal level. You can also get it like less.
Good.
Um, so you could probably get something, but I like spicy food. And I think my spicy threshold has definitely gone up over the years as I've been exposed to it more and more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't want it to hurt. Like, I'm not a crazy person, like
Well, you do
I'm
have
not
a
a masochist.
hot sauce on your list, so
Yes. No, I do. Like, I enjoy that, but for me, like, it's not something that I don't go to the level where it hurts me. But it was really funny because he didn't listen to me, and he asked for spicy. And so, like, halfway through the meal, I'm like, how is it? his eyes are watering,
Oh
and
God.
like his tears are like streaming down his face, and he's like, "This is really good, but I think next time I'll go for the normal." I was like, I told you, like, I think we hadn't like he didn't know like what my spice threshold was. So
Right.
I think he kind of assumed that I was on the lower end of that. And then,
Surprise.
yeah. And then he was super surprised. Like, I mean, I told you, like, I like spicy food, but I don't want it to just like kill me.
Right.
So for me, it's like the right threshold is like, my sinuses are going, but my eyes are clear. You know,
Right.
I
This
don't have any, you know, if I'm sniffling, that's kind of the
the
appropriate level for me.
right. Yeah, for
And
me,
I don't want something to be like burning my lips. You know, if it starts to burn, I'm like,
yeah.
But there are, I've been
Wasabi
learning.
and horseradish are the only two things that are
Oh,
spicy that I will
oh,
eat.
oh.
No?
And actually, wasabi, I do not touch. I hate the flavor of it.
Oh,
I don't
I
know what it
love
is.
wasabi.
It tastes like soap to me.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why. And it probably, I mean, I don't, yeah, I think it's just a weird genetic thing that like I just taste it differently, I think, than other people do. Because I imagine it doesn't taste like soap to you.
No, it does not. It does not.
You know, but it does to me. Like, oh,
Do you
like
think
who
cilantro
I-
tastes like soap?
no, actually, I love cilantro.
Interesting.
But wasabi, I'm like, oh, like, it's like, did I say a bad word? Like,
Right, right. Am
am
I
I
in
in the Christmas
trouble?
story right now?
Right. That's funny.
So yeah, wasabi, ugh, I can't stand it. But most like spicy things, I do enjoy. And like the hot sauces, I've been having fun more recently because I've recently gotten over my fear of cooking in the mornings because I'm not an early riser at all, and so hot sauces is like I'll do that with scrambled eggs or an omelet, and I've been experimenting with different ones. I got a ghost pepper hot sauce from the store on a whim, and it was it was it's really spicy, but I figured out that it's a nice compliment to just do a few like little drops of that like mixed in with like a Frank's Red Hot. Because to me, honestly, a Frank's Red Hot is like, it's like not. I like the flavor, but it's not super spicy for me.
Right.
Um, that's where my spice threshold is these days. I'm like looking at the ingredients, and if the first ingredient isn't some kind of pepper, it's like
Right.
it's not super spicy for me.
Right. Oh man, all this talk of spicy makes me want to go eat some white bread. I don't know. Drink some milk, perhaps. I don't know.
Nice, nice. I see you are a woman of culture. I see.
Yeah, yeah. All right, cool. So hopefully you felt that this was a good representation of your likes and dislikes.
Absolutely. This was so much fun.
Oh,
And
I'm
it
glad.
was fun learning about some of your likes and dislikes too, where we converged and where we diverged on some of these things. Romo's comment about the Thai spice scale is unexpectedly logarithmic.
It
Indeed.
is.
So actually, after spicy is Thai spicy.
Yep.
And I don't even want to know what Thai spicy is like. I think that's like you have to sign a waiver before you eat it.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine like getting that much more spicy than um, whatever the spicy level is, which to this day I haven't tried because it's just like the normal spice is very satisfying to me, and I've just never felt the need to like go above that.
Aw.
Um, so yeah.
Well, Brown Eyed Girl, thank you so much for the 100 bits. Guys,
Aw.
thank you guys for showing up. I appreciate everyone who's come in here and talked. Thank you, Ryan, for being such an awesome guest. I really loved your topics, and I really loved that, like you said, we were able to kind of like have conversations about the topics rather than just like, these are your topics, let's look it up. These are your topics, let's look it up. And that always makes for a really good guest. So, like I said, I hope you had fun. And I'm honored to have you on here, and that you had an opening in your schedule.
Yes. Yeah, I typically I have like music rehearsals on Wednesday nights.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't typically tune into Wiki Wednesdays, but I've gotten the opportunity to go back and watch some of your previous guests through the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And I'll be sure to share the YouTube link with my Discord, because I'm sure there are some friends who weren't able to tune in that would like to see this conversation a little bit later.
Awesome.
So yeah, thank you for having me. It's been super fun.
Yeah, I'm glad. And guys, we're not going to raid out today. I looked at my raid list. There's not really anyone that I feel comfortable sending you all over to. So we are going to just chill. Thank you so much for the clappies, guys. You guys have an excellent night. Happy New Year. And next week is Racket on January 3rd. So y'all have an amazing evening, amazing New Year, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Bye bye.